Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel here on YouTube, where I've got the TNT takes for you on Australian Survivor Heroes vs Villains episode 14. That's right, I'm back. But before we get into the 5 top takeaways, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, put the notification bell on so you can be informed next time I drop any content. And also thank you to everybody that has been supporting the channel. It's been awesome to hear all the comments and to be able to interact with the fan community of Australian Survivor. Alright, takeaway number 1 is that George feels buyer's remorse early on in this episode. They start off on the Heroes tribe with George and the boys, Matt and Jerry, asking themselves, did they make a mistake to let Stevie go in this spot in the game? But George mentions that he just didn't want to break up the whole alliance to save Stevie at this point, and he felt like this was a pivotal moment in the game. And Shani also tells us in a confessional that this could have broken up the alliance. So I do think that George did make the right decision in letting Stevie go, as hard as it is to admit, because obviously we see that it doesn't work out well for them in this spot. George is very aware that Flick is someone that he's played with before that can jump in between alliances, and that she's someone that maybe won't stay true to her word. She will go where the power is. And when we get to the merge feast, yes, that's right, we do get the merge in this episode, you can see that everybody is working the room very hard. Flick is immediately reunited with her people, the OG Heroes tribe. She's happy to be back with Sean, Sam, and David and the likes of Nina. And she has conversations at the merge feast with all of them, which makes George very, very nervous. And he talks to Shani and Liz and he says, we're in trouble, we need to work the room as well. And he immediately goes and latches on to Haley, spends a bit of time there, and that is the person that he's been nurturing and working with in the pre-merge section of the game by handing her information and showing a willingness to work with the Queen this season, which I think plays out dividends later on in this episode. As these groups are sort of moving to one side of the merge feast, you do see Haley very worried because she now knows that Nina was coming for her, and she only survived by the grace of the production survivor gods in that last episode. So she asks George, do I have to fear that conversation that is happening right there? And George says yes, continuing to put pressure on Haley to potentially fraction away from that Heroes tribe, which is great gameplay in my mind, because when Haley is worried, she is going to try and look out for herself. She's now made the merge, which was her first real big obstacle to overcome. Now it is about how far can she get to a final 2, final 3 spot, because if she can get somewhere into a final 6, final 8, we do know she's excellent when it comes to winning immunities. So she's just got to find her way at this point, and George may be her ticket in the game. Takeaway number 2, the OG Heroes get together at camp at night, and this was a brilliant scene. How often in Survivor do we see a group so blatantly strategize in front of another group? Now, I don't know if it was dark and they thought no one's going to see us move away from the camp, but you have all the OG Heroes there together, 7 of them talking with Matt and Flick included, and they talk about potentially, should we vote Simon out? Where should the votes go? But Sam has another plan. Sam really wants to target one of the queens in the Spice Girl. He wants to get either Liz or Shani because he sees them as 2 very dangerous game players. And also, I think in some ways, he wants to take a shot at George. But George is known for someone that can pull some rabbits out of his hat, maybe have an idol up his sleeve. So he tries to deflect the vote onto both Shani and Liz. As George sees this happening, he realizes that he's losing control in the game, and this is why George is such a great player. Now, I know people are probably going to hate it because this is the George Love Fest on this channel, but you have to admire great gameplay. Not a lot of players, when they see the axe coming, well, a lot of players don't even see the axe coming, but for those that do see it coming, sometimes even people who see the axe coming, they don't make a move. They don't know how to pivot or get the numbers on their side. But George is an operator. He's someone that hustles like no one else's business, and it's something he's got in common with some of the best players that we've ever seen this game. You know, Tony Vlachos is another example of someone that just do not stop thinking. David Gannard. These guys think about the game at night while they're sleeping. They're doing the numbers consistently, and George is good at doing the numbers. And he says that one of the biggest moves you can make in Survivor, it's a high risk move, is that you go and turn your enemy into your friend. You use them as an alliance member because no one's going to be able to expect that they could potentially work together. So George obviously is already working on getting Haley over. He feels pretty solid about Matt as a game player, and by the end of this episode we can see that he had a good read on Matt because Matt does come through for him. But he goes to Simon and he says, Simon, you're at the moment a lone wolf. You're someone that does not have a place in the game. Work with our alliance, make sure you get in with us, and you will go deep. We will go to the end of this game. And Simon at this stage, to be honest, I feel like his best gameplay move is to go with the likes of a Liz, a Shawnee, a George, a Jerry, because who's his biggest competition when they get to Final 7 for immunity challenges? I don't think there's many people that will be a very strong competition for him compared to the Mitre Boy Alliance, where he's got to work his way through all of those guys. He's got to work through David, Sam, and Sean, who could all be beasts at the challenges that he's going to be good at. And I think it's also the reason that Matt doesn't want to go to that alliance, because he knows he's at the bottom of that. He hasn't spent as much time with them, and he will have to work his way through those boys if he wanted to get to the end. So Simon does consider it. He's a bit in between, wishy-washy throughout this episode. He has a conversation with Haley just before they go to Tribal Council to say he's still not 100% locked in, but I think Haley must have convinced him in that moment that this is the right move to make if we want to get some power in the game. We can be the swing vote, because the swing vote's very, very dangerous. People always feel like they're so good when they're in the swing vote. Like, I'm the swing vote, I've got all the power in the game. I would be very scared about being the swing vote in the game, in a game such as Survivor, because people may not know where your allegiances lie, and that means you're at the bottom of either or of those alliances. So you've just got to think about who can you work with long term, or who could you beat long term if you need to win out in the game. And I think that is why Simon does end up swinging George's way. All right, takeaway number 3. The immunity challenge was one that I absolutely love. I love this metal framework that gets put in the middle of the ocean, and survivors have got to go underneath it and try and hold their breath or breathe while the high tide is coming in. Now, for those of you that are also Survivor US fans and watched Survivor 43, for the first time in the history of the show, we actually had 2 players outlast the high tide and break the challenge. And that was Carla and Owen. It was such a great moment, and I was wondering, can these people, these players, can they also outlast it this time? And it shows you how unique it was that Carla and Owen both broke the challenge, because these players didn't get past that point, and they were in there for about 50 minutes. I can't remember how long Carla and Owen were down there. I feel like it was a lot longer than that, but a lot of players struggled. I was surprised that not many people made a snorkel with their hands. That would be something that you would know as a Survivor fan is the best strategy to do, but it's easier said than done when I'm sitting here on the comfort of my own chair at home talking about the show. But Nina really impressed me. Nina showed me she knows that she has got a legacy to uphold. She knows she needs to play a very strong and good game. She's on the wrong side of the numbers. She lost naming the tribe, which I think she came in there really wanting the Vigilante name, which, to be honest, to be fair, is a really good name. But she got outvoted, and that didn't stick. And things are looking bad for her. She's in the wrong side of the numbers. And that's another thing. I know this is kind of not on the top 5 take, but I do want to address this. It was interesting that Nina and David and Sam were willing to let Liz go as quickly as they did, because I didn't see the post-merge game working out that way. I really thought those players would find a way to come together and take out some of the other OG heroes, such as a Sean or a Haley. But clearly they would have seen that Liz is really deep in with her alliance, and that it really wasn't in their best interest numbers-wise to do it. But they're still willing to sacrifice Liz potentially as someone to go home this episode, which is very interesting to me. And it's hard to keep a finger on the pulse of where that strategy and alliance is going. So I'd be very keen to hear more from the likes of a David, a Nina, and a Sam after the season about why they didn't try and work with Liz to a certain degree here. Now, George and Shawnee also talks at the immunity challenge about who they will target potentially on the other side, and Shawnee is thinking that they may still target Haley, but George very much says, I don't think so. I think Sam is coming for a big player. He's coming for you. And immediately when this immunity challenge is done and Matt wins it, well done to the lifeguard. Probably, who would have thought someone that spends a lot of time in the water would actually win this challenge? You do get Sam after this challenge admitting that yes, he is targeting Shawnee. So again, it just shows you that George has got such a great feel for this game. He understands where people are moving and shaking and where they're going within the waves, and it's something to be admired. The guy is so in tune with this game. He was born to play it. Now, number 4, pre-tribal scramble. And a lot of things happen in this pre-tribal part of the game, because now they're going to the first vote. They're obviously pulling in all their numbers, making sure everybody knows where they're going to vote for the OG heroes. And Haley and Matt is in on this. They know the vote. They know where the numbers are going to go, which is one of the reasons I think Liz knew where to play her idol at the end of the game. Still, hats off to her for playing it correctly. But George lets the cat out of the bag here, because the Spice Girls have a plan. They're going to go and vote out Sam. Sam is seen as one of the good old boys, someone that is a bit of a glue for that OG Heroes tribe, and they want to take out the person that potentially can hold people together. And Sam is also someone that George is fearful of, in the sense that he could take Matt away from him, and he could take Simon away from him, because they may have more in common with someone like Sam out there. And because of that, George is worried. He's worried about the fact that he may not have the numbers, and he wants to make his alliance very calm. And he goes to Sean and has a conversation with him, and he says, Sean, you need to get on the ship right now. You need to jump and make sure you're with the numbers. Otherwise, you're going to go very soon. And he tries to kind of intimidate him and play mind games on him. And Sean says it is quite intimidating talking to George. He doesn't almost want to talk to George, because he's got this psychopathic calmness about him when he talks, like almost like a Hannibal Lecter. He's looking at his prey when he's talking to them. And I really felt like I got what Sean meant. And I don't know, the editors are doing a good job in showing us this, but George seems so calm. Like, hey, we've got the numbers. It's done deal. There's no way. His confidence would scare me out there. And I think that's why he gets away with so many scenarios where people are like, it doesn't make logical sense for George to have the numbers. It doesn't make logical sense for George to be able to wiggle his way out of the situation. But he's so calm about it, he must have the numbers. He must have something up his sleeve that I think makes people doubt themselves, because the person who's the most confident normally wins the negotiation, and he's such a confidence player, and we haven't seen him proven wrong to date. Like, he's never been voted out of this game, and I don't know if we're gonna see it. I'm starting to believe, and I'm starting to drink the George Kool-Aid. I think he might go to the end. The one thing, though, that stood out for me in this episode, while that is on my mind, was the conversation that Jerry and Matt had. Because Jerry, Matt, and George, and beautiful gameplay. I know I'm a bit all over the place, but there was so much that happened this episode. Beautiful gameplay from so many different levels, because George is in the middle of his alliance. He's got the 2 girls, and I think that's why they wanted Flick, because they also wanted another option. And he's also got the 2 guys. And the 2 guys, though, do seem to be more loyal to each other. They're saying, if we get to a final 2 situation, we'll vote out George. And Matt knows that he's got a very good chance of winning the end game, because it's normally an endurance challenge when it comes to the final immunity challenge. So Matt is really setting himself up well for the end game here. I'm very impressed by him. We haven't seen much of Matt yet, but he's a late riser in the game at this point. And both Jerry and him are willing to use George for his brain that he has for this game, the strategy side of it, and then ride him to the end and potentially win. Could Matt be a Natalie White? Could Matt be the person that ends up riding George to the end and then wins the game? I think it's highly possible. Would I be satisfied with that? No, I'd be disappointed for the 2nd season in a row, because George is such a great player and such an entertaining part of this season. Alright. Takeaway number 5. David becomes the scapegoat for George's bombastic gameplay, because obviously at this point, Sean runs off to Sam and says, hey, they're coming for you, mate. Sam's a bit nervous. And Liz and Shani immediately gets annoyed by George telling them that he went over to Sean and tried to get a number from him. And they're saying, well, now they could play an idol on Sam, which is fair. Like, this is probably the worst thing George did the whole episode. And I think it's because George is such a confident player. He believes that he can turn water into wine. Like, he believes he can do anything out there, which you need to have that belief to be as good a player as he is. But sometimes, you're riding on the edge, and by playing that type of game, you could also burn your own alliance. So they have to go and change the numbers last minute, and they change it to David. And David goes home in this episode for nothing more than George just being a little bit over-aggressive and trying to get a number here. But it was great to see in any case, because David also thought he had a great grip on the game. I do feel for David, because it seems like he had some sort of a strategic mind. We just never saw it. We never saw him and Nina talk to each other, so it's probably a clear sign in my mind that no one from that side of the game is going to win. My top 5 people for winning this game right now, and I'll think it through, this is just on the spot, would be George, Shani, Liz, Matt, maybe Haley. I don't see Jerry winning the game. Because maybe he does. Maybe they respect the fact that he's just unwilling to work with the heroes, and he's told them, I'm not with you. Yeah, someone in that alliance is winning. Even though Haley is going to try and break away and do something, I think she might shoot herself in the foot here, going up against George, if she does change the direction of the game. But in any case, Liz does end up playing the idol. I do think, like I said earlier, that someone told her, probably Matt and Haley told her, listen, they're going to put votes on Shani. So if you're going to play your idol, play it there. David tries to bluff her and say, hey, are you sure you want to play your idol for Shani? And the look on people's faces, the look on Sam's face, the look on David's face, and all these heroes when she plays it correctly. And she has this dead stare when she's looking at them. Yep. Gold. Absolute gold. Liz is a G, and she is someone that I'm enjoying so much this season. Well played, Liz. What a way to hold your nerve, and do that. I can't wait to see what happens for the rest of the season. It has been an absolute great season. I spoke to Mucky before jumping on and recording it this morning, and he said to me that this is pretty much like the reverse Game Changers over in the US, where all the big players have made it to the merge, where in the Game Changers season, a lot of those players were voted out early. So this is going to make for a great end game. I'm all in. But for now, guys, grab your torches, head back to camp. I'll see you tomorrow night when I talk about the next Survivor episode.